All right, everybody, welcome back to the Cause to Become podcast. And today I'm joined by Vali Royal. Vali, you mind introducing yourself to the people, telling them a little bit about yourself?
I'm Vali Royal. I'm a singer-songwriter, music artist, mother of two, and I'm on my spiritual journey. And here we are, ready to talk about it.
Awesome. So I found Vali online and her music just impacted me, and I got to learn a little bit about her story and talking to her more. And she is so much deeper than just having like her music out there. She has a message. She's driven by faith as a mother of two. There's so much more here. And I think it's going to be a really good conversation to kind of just unpack the artist and the person behind the music that you guys listen to and behind the Instagram. And I think it can be a really good kind of podcast where we can get into conversation about, being a young woman and a mother, pursuing your dreams as an artist, as a musician. And we'll talk about faith and we'll talk about everything. And hopefully we drop some gems in here. So let's get into it. All right, Vali. So before we kind of hop in here, we want to give every guest a gift. So here is a Cause to Become hat. And the whole message of Cause to Become is to help people to become the highest and the best version of themselves. I think you embody that and the things that you're doing, and you have the medium of music to go ahead and spread a positive message. So whenever we're wearing the brand and stuff, that's what we want to do, is to spread that message.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here.
I love it.
Vali, I made sure to do my research here to really learn about you in depth. And so I want to ask some good questions here, because I know in our conversations in the past, you've been just dropping gems while we're on the phone.
I know.
And I'm like, we need a podcast now. So I'm glad that we got to make it work here. We're out here in beautiful Encinitas.
Yeah, it's so ocean. Beautiful. Yes. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So I just want to kick it off with asking, a little bit about your background here. So we'll start off with, where did you grow up and what was your childhood like, Vali?
I grew up in Utah. I was adopted. I was orphaned at a young age. I was adopted by a good family, in a good community. But growing up for me was a little different because, I'm not very dark or very brown, but I'm like the only Black person that I knew growing up. So it was like very, it's kind of hard to navigate, especially when like just the area that it is. I don't know if you've ever been to Utah, or if you've been to like very Mormon regions or very white regions of it, which is most of it. It's like less than, I think we looked it up one time, right? Less than 1% is Black or something. I remember just like never really seeing anybody that looked like me. I was separated from my biological family, very early on. So, I would say I had a challenging childhood, but I'm proud of, what it's made of me.
Awesome. Cool. And so, coming out of that, I guess you at some point made a decision to join the military, right?
Yes. I joined the military when I was 17.
You're 17. Okay.
I was 17, yes.
Well, how did you come to that decision? What made you say, I'm going to go join the military? And it's Navy, correct?
Yeah, I would join the Navy. To be honest, I always had like that sense of like, I don't know, that like call of duty, like to serve in some way. Yeah. But, I didn't feel like I was like very appreciated in my community, and I wanted to get out of there. Like I really wanted to get out of there and go somewhere where I had like a spot and I was useful and things like that. It's just like a call to me. And so I began the process of joining when I was 16. As soon as I turned 17, my dad signed the papers for me and I was able to like. And
you did it.
Enlist, yeah.
So you used the military as kind of like, hey, this is my opportunity to get out of here.
Yeah, well, just because like, and no offense to anybody that like still lives there or anyone I grew up with, but it's just that so many of them are still there doing the same things, and that's great for them. Some people really fit there. I didn't fit there, and feel like that was my out.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, I mean, I resonate with that. And J. Cole's song, Neighbors, right? Like sometimes when you're just around a community that like you're different than, whether it be in the way that you look or the way that you think or the aspirations, the goals and dreams that you have, it can be tough sometimes because you not only feel the isolation mentally of like, hey, I think a little bit different, but then you feel it physically too. And I know in certain places that I've been to, in rural parts of Texas or, even places out here in California and more inland, like there's some places where you feel like an outsider. And, I'm Persian, Mexican, the beard, little bit gaudy with my style, So like,
Yeah.
I quickly realized there were areas where you get stares and they aren't very good ones.
So you understand then what it's like to just be stared at your whole life.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother you after a while, like, especially as you become more comfortable with who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's interesting too is the concept of like people always looking at you from a young age. I had this realization where it was like, I felt as if people were looking at me and I felt like, stop looking at me. Then I realized, wait, I'm going to be in the public eye. Like I want to go and I want to share a message with the world. They're looking at me for a reason. I stand out. I'm different. Right?
Yeah.
And so I think in what you're doing now, you got all eyes on you, right? As a singer. And so it's kind of a weird thing that you have to come back and be like, this is actually what I've been raised to do.
Yeah, but luckily we have that foundation, right? Of always being stared at ever since we were children, you know?
Absolutely. So you got used to it.
Yeah.
All right. So in the Navy, like what was the most impactful thing that you pulled away from your time there? And how long were you in the Navy?
I was in the Navy for 7 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, funny that you mentioned J. Cole. Listen to a lot of J. Cole on deployments and stuff.
Okay, there we go.
No, but I was stationed in many different states and then also Japan. I came to California from Japan, actually. I would say the biggest thing that I pulled away from the military is discipline. I felt like a disciplined person even as a kid because I had to kind of like, emotionally support myself through a lot of things. So I felt like I had a foundation of discipline, but nothing disciplines you like the military. Yeah. Even though it's kind of like a lot of things they do are real silly or they seem silly, but they do put you through a lot of things that I think really instill a discipline in you that I've carried through and I've been out for almost 4 years now and I still feel that like sense of discipline.
Yeah. I think that's one of the really important parts of speaking to like artists and creators is, and even in myself, is people always think about the creative process as something that's like kind of free flow, something that isn't regimented or structured, or, they think about the things you're pursuing as a musician, as an artist, as something that's like less standardized in terms of operating procedures. Yeah. But it seems as if every artist has their own unique structure in which they kind of go about creating, and having discipline actually helps so that you can get good content out and that you can actually like have a good solid regiment to be creative in, right? It kind of like sets the confines of where you can be creative in. And I think a lot of times, creatives can really be benefited by having that structure. So in a way, you were kind of like set up to, okay, have that discipline. I don't mind that people are staring at me and looking at me now, and then now it comes like, okay, music. So coming out of the military, like at what point did you decide to start creating music to sing?
Yeah. I'll be honest. I never thought I would be here in this situation, in my bloodline, there's been a lot of like female deaths at a very young age. Yeah. So I kind of like expected to like fall in line with that. Wow. And I became really ill once I got out of the military. And I was hospitalized probably close to like 20 times in 1 year. And it was really just, a very challenging time to the point where like I literally didn't know like am I going to be here next year, Wow. So once I recovered from that, it took a lot of physical rehab, cognitive rehab to like come out of that. Once I felt like I was in a much more stable place, when I was recovering, I just began to write, and I've always been a writer. Mm-hmm. So I just began to write more creatively. And then, I don't know, I just kind of like, I had this friend and she was into music. She's always been into music. Yeah. And I've done music since I was a kid too. Since like 5, I played the piano. Yeah. But you said you were a childhood prodigy in the piano, right? Not all of that. But no, I don't know. I heard best pupils. I did do like, I went through about like 12 years of classical training. And then when I joined the Navy, obviously like I fell off with music a bit. But after the Navy, I had made this friend and she's a talented singer, a talented writer as well. And she just looked over some of my writing and heard some of my melodies or whatever, and she was like, you should really do this. And of course I'm just like, haha, that's so cute of you, thank you. Yeah. But no, I made a thing of it, and then I wrote an entire project. I brought it to my now producer and he loved it, and they they agreed with me. We made a deal, and
Let's
here we
go.
are. Yeah.
That's awesome. So you kind of like, you were decided you wanted to do it, and now you're already working with a producer. You have
Yeah.
like,
Well, it felt like I, not like in a bad way at all, but it felt like I have to do it now. You know, it's like I was given, I truly feel I was just given a second chance at life when there was a time that was so abysmal that I just didn't think I didn't think I'd be around, and I am. And since I am, I have no choice but to aim for the highest good. And I feel like this is my gift and this is my way of doing it.
wow, that's super powerful. So it's not even like you want to, you felt like you had to.
Yeah.
So,
and I do want to. I do love it. I love what I do. Yes, I'm so grateful to be doing it, but I do feel like it's more of a calling than anything else.
Yeah. That's so cool. I think like when you think and look at some of the greatest people, whether it's in music or business or sports, I think there's that underlying calling that they feel like it's something more than just themselves.
It's really a spiritual connection, I would say. I would say that. I don't know if you feel that way, but like your journey, as far as you've come as well, it's got to be divine.
I mean, I think so in every way. Yeah. And I would definitely want to speak more on like your faith and things like that as well. But speaking to like you coming out of the military, and then you had this illness, like you said there was a point in your life, which one, you already accepted that, okay, the people in your family have had past that predisposition. And then you're finding yourself sick, and you were at a point in which you didn't think that you were going to make it, you know, to live, you know, the rest of your life.
Yeah.
This is before or after kids? This
is while my kids were a bit younger. I think,
wow. So
my son would have been 2 or 3, and my daughter would probably be 4 or 5.
Wow. So you were like in this moment where it's not just, you know, you're thinking about, I'm not going to make it, but you're also thinking about being there for your kids, right?
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
How did you come out of that?
Such fear for that, right? And, their dad is so good, such a great dad. So it's not like I was like, awesome. I was like afraid they weren't going to have anybody, but I was like, you know, I grew up without my own mother, and I know how hard it was, right? It's just not something I wanted for them. So coming to terms with that, which I eventually did because I was so down at a point where I just eventually had to just come to terms with it. Like, okay, I might not be here for, you know, their next developmental stages, things like that. Very sad, more depressing than anything. While I felt physically ill, it was like just such a sadness.
Yeah.
But I'm like so grateful that I've come out of it.
Yeah. It seems like when we have those moments that really bring us to our lowest points in our lives, in which we have to contemplate mortality, we have to contemplate life, our impact, that can be a moment in which it kind of makes or breaks people, right? Yeah. And people come out of that either, you know, 10 times stronger and like fueled with a mission and purpose. And some people, it's hard to get them out of that. And, you know, did you have a moment in that coming through that where you're like, you know what, as you're recovering, like, this is what I have to do. Like, I want to spread a message. Is that kind of the impetus? To be honest, I didn't think about my own message until, cause you know, right after the illness and then going through, like, I was in like a 12-week physical rehab program and like it's like almost a 6-month cognitive rehab program. Wow. During those times, you know, like, they're very challenging times to have to rehabilitate. So they call it, you know, it's really like learning how to be in your body again, really. Wow. And I think, it wasn't until I felt like I had like all my functions back, like I was beginning to even like build more muscle, be stronger. Yeah. I felt like, then I was like, it kind of just hit me like, whoa, that was a close call. But here I am, you know what I mean? So, Hineni, Lord, like, yeah, you've blessed me. Allow me to like bless your children as well. Bring your messages of promise to those who are downtrodden, hopeless. Cause I've been there, and so many of us have been there in so many different ways. Like, I think my life is hard. You probably have things about your life that you think are hard. Mm-hmm. There are people who probably have it way worse than both of us. Absolutely. You know what I mean? And it's like, knowing that and having gone through it, I feel like there's no choice but to just try to lift as many people around you as you can. Wow. I resonate with that deeply.
Isn't that your whole thing too?
Yeah,
Like that's what I see when I watch your stuff, when I see your journey, what you're going through, all I see is somebody that, like, that's why I feel like we connect well, and is that our message is very similar.
Yeah. I think Rick Rubin talks about the idea of ideas being kind of frequencies, or like signals that are out there, and like we tune in and we kind of tap in, and we are the vessel that brings that idea into reality. And that's the whole message of what Cause to Become is to cause the becoming of your highest self. And I think that's central. Creation is central to that, because we all were born with a mission and a purpose, I believe.
Absolutely.
And I think that we can tune into that and then bring it into this vessel here, which we are in our body, and then output and create something. And for some people, that's a business. Some people, that's music, you know? And I guess for me here, it's the podcast. And I think it's a really cool thing. And the whole goal is to help people to make it through those tough times, because we all have them. And I'm sure that you had, whether it be God to rely on, or your faith, or people around you, people that help to bring you out of that. And I know the people that helped me, that I'm eternally grateful. And so I feel similar to you when I'm like, I know that I have to share a message here. And I think a big part of the message I have to share is to spotlight people like yourself who have this message, you know, like I want to make sure that everyone's voice can be heard here. Like the world needs as many eyes, as many perspectives as possible, so we can arrive at what truth really is.
That's beautiful. To speak to what you're saying about ideas and energy, I believe there are no new ideas, only new vessels, right?
Wow. Yes.
And I think, I would like when people see my art, when people see me, I would like that they are just seeing my vessel, but the words, the music, the things that I create are created through me, through like divine energy. I can't even take credit for it. You know, I do take credit, like in an earthly sense, like, yes, thank you for your compliments on my work, but my work is not mine. My work is his to me.
And it's like everything that you see in me, the light that shines in me is also inside you. And I think that's a big principle that, you know, Jesus speaks about. And it's like, you can do this too. You know?
I think the most important thing is like seeing similar energy, but in my case, seeing God. Like when I see you, I see God in you. And the people that I choose to network with, that I choose to have connection with, I see God in them too. Like, so it's, I'll have friendship or kindness with everybody and love for everybody, but I only find fellowship with those that I can see God in.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. I think that's that concept of like the light inside of people. Sometimes you look at people and you see like, it's just not there. And whether it be, it's hidden deep down over so much protective layers, or, you know, people are just like, a lot of times I see it with people who have given up internally, given up on life, yet they still exist, which is a really terrible thing to see in someone's eyes. Sometimes you don't see that light. Also, I see it on people who are on like a lot of, anti-anxiety, anti-depression, psychotic medications sometimes. I feel like these things really disconnect people from source and that divine spark. Potentially good uses of them. I worked in biotech and pharma for a little bit. I know a little bit about it.
Right.
I don't necessarily think that those things are the best. But those are the times in which I see, people that don't have that spark and that light. And, I really always try to help people foster that light back again. You know, that's really cool.
The important thing about, of course, the important thing about like people like us and like anyone who's watching that feels like a connection the way that we do is like, I don't know about you, I can't speak for you, but when I see somebody, I'm always looking for like a divine potential within them. Yeah. And if I can see even like a spark of it, I want to foster that. You want to like just take it to seed, right? You want to care for it, let the roots grow deep and let, you know, the fruit grow wide, you know? Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that's the real goal of everything that I'm trying to do here. And the people that I speak to, in the conversations that I have, like if I find an area in which I'm like, oh, like this is an area in which that light is kind of being dimmed via a mindset, a belief, something that they haven't kind of overcome or worked through. I try to help them to work through it, and just as a human being, you know, because then you like, it's like fanning that flame, like blowing into that ember, and to see it glow brighter in someone. I mean,
sometimes all people need, like, I believe God speaks through people. He sends people for you. Yeah. I feel like sometimes all people need is someone to just like, you know, push them up, or to see something in them. I think a lot of it is like, you know, people's light grows dim, but it's like humans we're very social, like, in that way that we need people to see the good in us.
Yeah.
You can see the good in yourself, but if people aren't seeing that in you or fostering that in you, like, you know, it's like starvation. It's like starvation.
Yeah. When you had your friend who said you should do music, right?
Right.
I had somebody who said you should do a podcast. But speaking to you on that, okay, so your friend told you, they gave you that push there, like you should pursue music. So I guess like understanding a little bit more behind you and your music career, like what is your main like hope that or goal that people could take away from the art and the music that you put out there?
I think peace is a big one. You know, there are artists out there that are probably like quite a bit, you know, a bit more hardcore, things like that. And it's great and beautiful to like to express those messages in those ways. But for me, like I said, when people look at me or look at my art, I want them to feel connected to something like higher than just me. Cause to me, the message is so much bigger than just me. I almost wish to like push the attention away from me, but at the same time, like the way that the way that I do create, I'm guided every step of the way. Like like I told you, most of it isn't even really my ideas. Sometimes I write things and I'm like, where did that come from? And sometimes I really am deeply entrenched in creation and I can feel it all like just flowing through me. So I think the biggest thing I would like people to take away from what I do, what I make is peace and love. Like, but I know that sounds very cliche, but love is like everything. Like God is love. Agape love is like the most important thing to me in the world. Yeah.
What was that word you said? What type of
agape?
Love? Agape love?
Agape. AGAPE.
Okay. What can you expand on that? I don't know what that means.
Agape love is like, think of unconditional, but think of it on like the godliest level that you can.
Wow.
Because God is love. God is sorrow. God knows suffering more than any of us. Yeah. So if you think you're full of sorrow, you think you're full of suffering, like God knows that on an exponential level, and he still loves everything. He loves his whole creation. He loves everything about you so much that he wants to take away your sin so that you can be great.
Wow. That was really, really profound. I think in this, I'm also really trying to figure out like, what is God? What are we trying to pursue? Trying to figure out what the truth is. And, God is love seems to be the main message, the main takeaway here. And, agape love is, I think that's important because I think people often only see love in like the happy, the good, and to also
it's very romanticized in our world. Yeah.
And to make it that like people who are suffering in pain, downtrodden, crestfallen, like there's still an aspect of love in that as well. And that God is there for them. I think that's super big. I think it comes to like the concept about the alchemization of that pain and like, you know, feeling those lows and going back and reaching highs.
I believe that we're connected to God through suffering, to be honest. Because like if anyone suffered more, like every time that, you know, one of God's children turns against him, ignores him, can you imagine what he looks down and sees some of the things that we are doing to each other? Yeah. And like the pain that is. So I believe that when we suffer, that is our ultimate connection to the divine creator. Salvation through suffering is my belief.
Yeah. It almost seems like in order to be able to really truly enjoy the beauty, the happiness, that exists all around us, you have to be able to also, understand the opposite. Right. And I think once you have that understanding and you realize how precious every moment is, like how beautiful it is to see, you know, yourself in health, your children in health, you know, to be able to go out and to enjoy a beautiful day, and to have the ability to create is something where it's like, wow, this is a privilege not granted to all. And so I want to go out there and capitalize on this.
No, absolutely. I feel like every breath that you can draw is another gift, right? Because it's another moment that you're allowed to live and have the human experience. Because the human experience is not always rainbows and butterflies, as we know. It's actually quite painful, but it's for our spiritual growth. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's a journey here.
Yeah.
So thinking about your creative process a little bit more, thinking that you view yourself as a vessel and that you want to give this kind of glory to God, right? What does it look like for you, your creative process, when you're thinking and you have an idea to then create, you know, the beautiful songs that you put out? Like, what does it look like?
Thank you. The ideas start as like a seed. Like I said, like I could have like a seed of an idea 6 months ago and I'm just now putting it on paper, just because it's always like, it's like flowing all the time. So for me, my creative process looks a lot like exercise, vocal exercise, body movement in a way that helps me to feel connected to my faith. And as far as like the creative process, it is different every time. Sometimes I write lyrics first, sometimes I get the song first. It's just it's what I love about it is that it's so different and nuanced every time, that it's a new experience every time. Every little thing you make, even if I'm doing visual arts, if I'm doing music, if I'm doing any type of like modeling or creating something for someone else, because I like to do that. I like to make content and things for other people.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
That's cool. So every time it's kind of unique in that, like, how do you go from idea to song? Like, where do you get most of your ideas? Is it through exercise, working out, through, a lot of my ideas come when I'm driving, you know?
I love to drive. So I do get a lot of ideas when I'm driving. I draw inspiration from others, like my friends, or even just like people that I see on the internet that I see are doing good things. I draw inspiration from that. A lot of my inspiration comes from books. I do love the Bible.
Yeah.
So much wisdom.
Yeah.
So much beauty in there. So these are the places that I find the most inspiration.
Cool. And then once you have that inspiration, like you kind of jot things down. Are you like a on the phone typing person? You still on the pen?
I am a pen and paper gal. I only write cursive. I just don't have very good manuscript handwriting. But so just because of that, all my books look very neat and beautiful. And I love that. It's a great aesthetic for me. But yeah, I'm a pen and paper gal. Chalkboard, whiteboard sometimes. I like to write it. out.
Okay.
I use the phone for more audio type things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got you. That's cool. I think that you have that, like, keeping it like old school. It's interesting. The concept of writing is really beautiful because the idea, the words are in here. And as soon as you take the pen and like actually stroke the page and you start to write the words, you've now literally materialized that idea, right? Even if it's just in
that's what I like about it, to have it in a tangible form, right? Because doing it on the phone is great, so convenient. Like if I'm out and I don't have pen or paper, yes, I'll do it into my phone, or I'll try to just like burn it into my brain or something. But also like, to have it like tangible is so important for me. Like I have a bookshelf of collections of like my own writings of others that I've drawn inspiration from. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. It seems to be like, that's why writing can be such a cathartic thing too, because you're actually like getting it out and jumbled up in here into a physical form, and then you can actually see it, spread it out. And that really helps you, helps me, to be able to like, you let go of things and also to start to see things from different perspectives.
Yeah, it's like thinking with your body, like in a way, even though it's just your hand. Like, you know, sometimes we think of like parts of the body as like their own thing, but like it could be hard sometimes to like take your vessel for a whole thing, right? Just using my hand is still a physical act, and making something tangible, it's like, you work out too. Aren't you a personal trainer?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No. That's amazing. That's amazing. So you understand the importance of movement and like harnessing energy and using it for movement. Yeah.
Yeah. When you get famous, I'll be like your like celebrity trainer.
Stop.
So. Okay, you talked about some of the self-care practices too that you do. That's a part of your creative process. Anything else that is important too, and like part of your day, or like something that you do before you start to really go into writing a song?
I never do an exercise or begin creating without some kind of prayer or meditation beforehand, because I think setting an intention is really, really important. I don't know how much you know about psychedelics. Have you ever done psychedelics? I don't do them. I don't do them. I have done them, but I think it's like the same concept. Anybody, like, it's kind of popular. It's getting more popular in California.
Course, yeah, mushrooms,
like when you take a mushrooms or some LSD or whatever. The number one advice is to set an intention. Why would it be any different for any other type of cathartic release?
Yeah, that's powerful. And I think when people go into something with an intention, it makes it so that there's a little bit more directive, and you can ask for like guidance and support in that, you know? I think that's really important, to be intentional with what you do.
Intention. I think intention and precision is kind of like, these are things that I'm still learning and I'm getting better every day too, but intention and precision, I think, are like the most important things when you're really trying to make something, when you're trying to build something that's going to last.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so I have this question where I'm curious, like, how do you label yourself? Do you label yourself as an artist, a musician? Like, what's particular label like fits for you?
I would say artist, because while I do love music, that's not like the only thing I do. I'm really into like visual arts. I'm mostly a writer at heart, so music isn't it for me. Music is kind of like my door, my step into the threshold, really. But past that, I would love to like, I want to be able to like make movies. I want to be able to write good novels, good books, and just do things that are going to help other people through my art, right?
Yeah.
And so I would say an artist, because of all forms.
Cool. I think that's important. Music is just like one of the mediums, and it seems as if people who have a calling for any type of artistic pursuit, it spans far beyond just a single medium. Like you see people who are podcast artists, that are, visual artists, digital artists. They like to rap, they like to sing, poetry. It seems to be like it's all any type of like creative expression.
They call that multi-potentialite. And I think it's like, it kind of sounds silly when people like call themselves that, because sometimes it's just like, some people can be full of themselves. I'll say that.
Yeah.
But I can see a multi-potentialite. I know one when I see one, right? Because I am one too.
Yeah.
And I think the best thing you can be is a multi-potentialite, because people are given gifts, and you should master what you've been given, of course. But there are people that can master multiple things and still be, people say like, some people spread themselves too thin, but if that's your calling to do this and that and that and that and that, then you should do all of it. Do you know what I mean?
So I have a biology degree, and what you said, multi-potentialite, I think is really cool. If you bring it to a biological perspective, if you think about stem cells, have you heard of stem cells?
Yes.
There's the concept of pluripotent potential that stem cells have. And I think that is a really, really cool thing to bring to just thinking about people. And when you see someone and they have like ability and capacity and agency, and you see that divine spark in them, and it's so cool because it's like there's pluripotent potential. You can literally be anything and everything that you want. And so it's like, well, what shall you choose? Like, we can't do everything
at once.
Yeah. But it's like, what does your heart really call for you to do? And like, I think you can go out there and do it.
And I think it's different for each phase of your life. Right now, in this phase of my life, yes, I'm doing music and I want to master it, and I am loving doing it, but maybe that's not my calling anymore in a couple of years, or, and I'm ready for that, and I'm fine with that, as long as like I'm guided by the Spirit, which brings me faith, Wow.
That's so cool. Gosh, I wish we could spend so long talking about these things.
Gosh, I know.
Okay, so I want to bring it into the topic of like motherhood, right? And one more time, how old are the little ones?
My daughter is 7 and my son is 5.
Okay, got you. So I have this question here, and feel free to take time to think on this. Like, who is Vali as a woman and a person before kids, and like, who is Vali as a woman and person after kids? What are the changes and things that you notice?
Well, I started having kids really young. I think I was about 19 when I got pregnant with my daughter. So I think like I had to grow up fast. I have a few other like, mom friends that had kids around the same age or around the same age as me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's nice, but I do feel like not at all do I feel like I missed out on my early 20s, because now that I've like, I've had kids at a young age, I almost recommend it. I almost recommend having kids.
I might second.
I recommend having kids and getting married as young as you can, if that so calls to you, right? Because obviously it's not for everybody. People can make terrible decisions at such a young age.
Yeah.
However, I think that it's important to grow up with your kids. We have a connection that, a mother-child connection, as well as a father-child connection. A parental connection to a child is something that is like so unparalleled.
Yeah.
It's like I could sit here and explain it to you till I'm blue in the face, but you can't know that love till you have that love. You know what I mean?
I think that's something that's real.
Right.
People
so
won't understand.
I would say that like I'm a different person, but all for the better.
Got you. What do you think are like, I guess expanding a little bit more in terms of like, how has your life changed, before, like and having kids? Like, what do you think are some of the biggest changes?
I think, the overwhelming sense of responsibility, because you are responsible for another life, and in my case too. And then there are people that have many more children than that.
Yeah.
And I think it's beautiful. I think having kids is beautiful. When I was younger, it was never something I wanted to do. I didn't want to have kids. I never wanted to be married. I kind of want to just like live my life alone. So I think that this is, God's message to me that, you can make your own plans all you want, but he has something different for you.
Mm-hmm.
He has something different for every person. I would say the biggest change is the responsibility, but it only makes you better if you can lean into it. Because a lot of parents really struggle with responsibility. A lot of parents really struggle with something is like postpartum depression. It's a real thing.
Super real.
It's super real. And a lot of moms, even after their children are older, it turns into like a regular major depressive. Like it's no longer postpartum at that point, because they didn't have help while they were having the depression. They didn't have the proper care, things like that. So that's just like one example that I'm trying to say, is that everybody handles parenthood differently. And I wish to eventually, like when I find some type of success, I would want to help people in that situation, because having children is beautiful, and it's hard to see that sometimes with all the earthly circumstances that surround, especially in our world, the way it's going right now. Yeah. It's terrifying having kids. Yeah,
it is, because there's so many things, so much they're exposed to. It's hard to think about like sheltering them from a lot of the bad stuff. Absolutely. So I have little sisters that are about the same age as your kids, and so I kind of think about some of these things too. That's why I'm curious. And I know that there's a lot of people out there who are thinking like, oh, like I don't want to have kids, cause then I want to go after my goals or, pursue my art career. But you're doing it and you're making it work, which I think is really, inspiring to a lot of people. And it's also a testament to the discipline that goes into creating the art that you're putting out, the music that you're putting out, because I imagine it's not just, oh, let me just go to the studio and do this, or let me just go book this podcast.
It's never just anything.
You gotta deal with the.
I feel like it's just a little hard too, because like, a lot of people in our position that are trying to make something, many of them do not have kids or any other responsibilities, and I feel like there's a maturity gap when it comes to that.
Yeah.
Not in a bad way. It's just that like, you can't understand what it's like to have to like plan your whole life around somebody else's whole life. You know what I mean? So I feel like people like often get like a little frustrated with me because I don't answer that quick. I give as much energy as I can to the things that are important to me. But sometimes I just don't even have 5 seconds to myself to even like catch up with it. So I don't even know how I got where I am right now. Sometimes it's just like a blur, but it's just like when it's that important to you, and it's important for me to be able to like provide a good life for them too. So that's the way I look at it, is like having to learn to look at the end goal that is far in the future, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. And I think really, really inspirational. And that's why I'm like, damn, I got to talk to Vali. We got to have her on the podcast. It's so cool.
I appreciate that.
What advice would you give to people who may be in a similar position to you, who are trying to go after their mission, their goals, their dreams, but they also have kids? Like what advice would you give to maybe a young mother out there who's in a similar position?
I would say that your kids are watching.
Mm.
They watch everything you do. They may not understand everything that you're doing, but as a mother, as a parent, especially and if you're the primary parent, they're always looking to you because they don't know, kids don't know anything. They don't know anything. Yeah. They're learning from zero, right? And most of what we learn, most of the mannerisms, behaviors, and emotions that we learn are from our parents. And so I remember being fairly just aware as a very young child. I have very early memories of what certain situations felt like because I was watching the adults around me. And I feel like adults, even that don't have kids, don't understand that as an adult, you have a responsibility to set example for children. And for me, especially for your own children, right? Yeah. So they're watching and just gotta give it the best you can, because if you don't, they won't. Mm.
Yeah, lead from the front.
Exactly. Lead from the front.
Cool. Any words of encouragement to moms out there who are trying to pursue their entrepreneurial, artistic goals?
I would say, and what's hard too is just for a lot of moms, I know it's just childcare, especially here in California. It's so expensive, so expensive. What I do and what I do recommend is having the art that you do be able to include your kids in it. Because for me, the hardest thing for me is taking time away from my kids. But obviously I have to for certain things. I can't just have them all up in the studio. I can't just have them, and in my home studio, for sure, we be wild in there. But it's I can't take them to a professional setting to do serious or really important things. So I have to make those moments count a lot. And then I have to make the moments that I have with them count even more, right? So when I'm doing things, the things I can do from home, I try to include them in it, let them hear. They love it. They're my biggest fans. They're always singing my stuff, and my son has even crafted some of my melodies for me.
Let's go.
He loves it.
That's awesome. That's a huge piece of advice, to do something where you can include them into it. I think that's really powerful, and it probably allows you to even draw more inspiration and have a push harder and have that creative life force energy flowing through you.
It also it humbles you, and it reminds you who you're doing it for. That's what I would say.
Let's go. I know in some of J. Cole's songs, he talks about seeing kids in the studio and having respect for people who do that. That's kind of a stand-up person. So I think that's really awesome that you include your kids in that. And that's great advice, I think. Okay, now I'm curious to think about art and entrepreneurship. I think a lot of times people separate them. How do you grapple with the concept of expressing your authentic self, putting out your creative works, but also the aspect of having a business and making money? Do you think they're separate? How do you grapple with those two things?
I really tried to keep it so separate for the longest time, just because I wanted it to be pure art. I didn't want to have to think about marketing or anything like that. And I still don't love to think about marketing or doing it for money or doing it for business wise. However, I've grown into it that it is my calling, just this is your calling, but we gotta eat. Yeah, we gotta have clothes on our back. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I think, I've grown into my entrepreneurship, and I'm still learning. Obviously, I don't know that much about business. I used to think business books were so boring. And it's just but I would say that as someone who really tried to separate them like that, if you want to be your own artist and your own independent boss, you can't separate them any longer. You have to, they go hand in hand. And, I would just say ease into it, because that's what I had to do. I thought, I'll just get this mental switch one day, because it is really a mindset. It's really a mindset. Some people do get that mental switch. However, for me, it's been I'm still on that journey of like being more involved in the business aspect of it. I think it's important to know your own business too. People will take advantage of you.
Yes, that's super important. Like it is about like love, positivity, peace, but it's
not to everyone, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's the thing, is to realize that in the garden there are snakes, right? And I always, kind of ask for protection. I'm so blessed and incredibly grateful that I have such an amazing family. My mom every single night has my little sisters, send good energy and pray for me and protect me, and she does the same. And I know there's so many of my family members and people who care about me who are doing that, and I try to reciprocate that. But that always just helps me to know that I'm like divinely guided and protected.
Yeah.
Because I know there are snakes in the grass.
Absolutely.
Right? But I think having that education, like you said, is important. And a part of this process of, like you said, the artistic process, this is like a journey, a spiritual journey to some degree. And learning is a part of that. And learning about business, about entrepreneurship, about marketing, about how all this goes in together is really good, so that you have a holistic view of how all this is kind of shaping.
Yeah, I think you got to be able to see it like bird's eye view. That's the thing, is that like, there's snakes in the garden. There's doves in the sky. You should know what they both know.
Yeah.
Right? To protect yourself, to protect others, and to get to where you need to go.
Yeah. And that's the aspect of like, people say like ignorance is bliss. I don't think that. I think that it's important that you know it. You know the dark, the ugly, the scary, all of that. And then you find a way to create something beautiful out of that, to be aware. A lot of times people will I've seen a lot of times people avoid diving into topics that can be a little bit more.
What I'll say is that I think people like, now I'm not saying this in a negative way, but especially weak people avoid depth.
Yeah.
And there's depth in everything. There's depth in business. There's depth in art. There's depth in evil. There's depth in love.
Mm-hmm.
But people avoid the very depths, right?
Yeah.
And the success you're looking for and the results you're looking for are within the depths that you're avoiding every time. I believe that.
That's super powerful. And people need to go in there and that's the biggest thing, is to walk in faith with no fear, or at least knowing that you are being divinely supported, knowing that when your intentions are pure and your heart is good, that you can walk in faith, to be vigilant and to stay aware. But also that I think when you walk with that faith, that it really helps you to embark on this journey into the unknown, with just a perpetual motion forward. And I know sometimes when you step into that dark room as a little kid, you're scared, you want to flip on the lights, and then you realize there's no light switch. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. Where is the light? How do I illuminate this darkness? And it kind of comes internally, right? You foster that light, you connect to God, you connect to deeper faith, and everything starts to brighten up. You start to see a path forward, maybe just the next step, and then the next and the next. And I think you can foster a light so bright. And I think that's the goal of what people like you and I are probably trying to do, where it's like, hey, I'm not doing this to get the spotlight on me. I'm doing this to foster a light so bright that it illuminates a path forward for everybody to go and pursue their own individual dreams. Yeah.
C.S. Lewis writes something about this, about a dark hallway, and there's a room with a window in it. Takes a long time. You wait in the hallway for a long time. You get into that room. It's so bright and you love it there, but you have to remember there's still people behind you in line in the hallway. We have to be kind to those people because they have not seen the light yet. They want to, but they're waiting. And I think it's really important to like understand that everybody's coming from everybody's time is different. Everybody's journey is different. Everybody's in a different spot. Even if you're like the same exact age as somebody with the same similar circumstances, everybody spiritually is in a different spot. And it's so important to remember that. And try to meet people where they're at. People that have like maybe a leadership quality, a spiritual leadership quality, like you and I and those watching, being able to meet people where they're at in the time that they're at.
Yeah. That's awesome. As a trainer, I always tell people, my goal is to meet you where you're at and then push you just a little bit more.
Amazing. Amazing.
So it's like 1 foot in comfort, 1 foot in chaos.
And you can apply that to your own self. I think that's really important to apply to your own self, to be able to challenge yourself, meet yourself where you're at. Cause not every day is good. You don't wake up feeling great every day. Like there's going to be weeks, months, sometimes even years that are just challenging, but you have to meet yourself where you're at and then push yourself a little further. Absolutely.
All right, Vali. So the next kind of topic I want to touch on here is, I know we mentioned a little bit in regards to your faith. But I think there was a specific quote that you said that I think was really stood out to me. So you said, "The world is a sinking ship. Let's love each other on the way down." Can you unpack that a little bit for me?
Yeah. So that was like probably like right after my medical crisis. While I was going through treatment, while I was like, you know, in the hospitals receiving care, while I was going through treatment, I met so many people who were in similar and dire situations.
Yeah.
And so many of them were missing like love in their lives as well. And I felt like what it seemed like to me in those hospitals was like the hospital itself was a sinking ship. And people are worried about their life, they're worried about not dying. And doctors are professionally trying to help them in things. But it's like, it seemed absent of love. And I realized that really, I feel like it was the absence of love of like myself, like from within myself. And I feel like it's an individual basis. Like if you're lacking love and I'm lacking love and he's lacking love, where's the love?
Yeah.
So where's the love to foster?
Yeah.
You know?
I was thinking of, where's the
love? The love.
Hey, oh, you got to sing.
My bad. No. We're not singing today.
Oh, dang. I thought we would get some unreleased. Let's go. So, because when I heard that quote from you, I was like, it's interesting because it's a little bit pessimistic in a way. And then it's like, hey, if we're thinking of this as like a sinking ship, but it helps me to understand what you're saying is like people who are in kind of dire times, and you found that resonated with you when you were in a place in which you didn't necessarily know if you were going to make it through, right? And so your life at that time,
I felt like a sinking ship. I felt like a sinking ship.
But you were still able to find like, hey, even if we're all on the way down, let's still find love and be able to bring that.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't mean it to be pessimistic. I meant it to be real, just because like,
super real.
You know, once it started, it was over. You know what I mean? Like, that's just how it is. Like, the story's already written, to be honest. Like, we're already dead. Like, but we're here in this time now. If we're not using the time that we have now on love and peace and understanding and service towards one another and service to God, then like, what are we really doing here?
Yeah.
We're just hunks of meat on this rock. Like, I refuse to believe that.
I refuse to believe that as well. And I think tying it to the concept of one, you were in a space in which your mortality and like death was like something you're contemplating and you're seeing around you. But extrapolating outward and expanding it, every single one of us, the thing that we're all guaranteed is death. Right? We will all die.
It's what we all have in common.
Yeah. And
just like we have flesh and blood in common and organs, whatever, like, yes, we are all subject to mortality.
Yeah. And so it's like, if we are all going to die, you know, people can take a really negative and a cynical, pessimistic outlook on that, but you found a way to make that beautiful and to be like, you know what, like if that's the case, well then we're going to have the best time and fill this with as much love as possible.
Yeah. And some people take that like, you know, YOLO, you only live once. Yeah. Everybody's going to die. Let's get fucked up. Let's like do drugs and hurt ourselves and hurt other people. That's just the difference between me and other people.
Of course. And I think that's the difference of taking it in a way that is a positive way, where you're like, hey, in this lifetime, I'm gonna die, so I might as well try. And like you said at the beginning, like spread as much good and as much of a positive message as I possibly can. And I resonate with that deeply. So that's cool to hear that little bit more on that quote there. So talking about, you know, kind of your faith here, like how did you come to find God, or how did you kind of come to have this deep faith and deep connection?
I would say that I grew up with like a lot of like religious trauma. And like, I don't like to throw the word trauma around lightly. I'm like very serious when I say trauma, because everyone thinks that they have trauma, and everybody does have like a trauma on some level. However, I was well on my way to being a professional victim. You know, I was on my way to having a victimhood mentality, was on my way to closeted racistness, like just for the way that like I was treated growing up within my religious community, within the racial community that I grew up in. So all these things together, I was raised Mormon, and I fell away from that as soon as I could, probably around 13 or 14.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was 24, 25 that I was honestly like, I wouldn't say I was an atheist because I didn't feel that strongly, but I just was so indifferent for so many years, you know. And then I remember I was walking through Balboa Park with my friend. Now, it was a lot of people around, but this monk came up to me and gave me a copy of the Bhagavad Gita. And I was like confused by it. I was like,
yeah,
why me? But it's like he could sense the energy in me that I was struggling, that I was looking for something, and I had no idea what. So I read all about, you know, Krishna and Arjuna. It's a beautiful text, but about halfway through it, I was feeling like a call from God toward the Bible. And the Bible is something that I've been avoiding for so many years, just because of like the connotations around it, what I experienced as a young child and everything. But I began to read it, and it was in that first chapter of Genesis that it just got me. It got to me, you know? It'd been so long since I'd ever opened one or even thought about what it would say in there. And that's where it kind of started for me. And then I would, you know, I was kind of lonely in that I didn't have a lot of friends or family around me that were searching for that at all. So I had to kind of just like look towards the internet and see other people that were on further along in the spiritual journey. That's where I came across a lot of like different religious podcasts and things like that. Most of which I do still take with a grain of salt, because as I've grown further into it, I noticed there's a lot of Pharisees and Gentiles in the community.
You know what? I 100% agree with that. The more I've really started to explore the spiritual space and like online, I couldn't believe how much people could preach about love and God and faith. And then to meet them in person and to see how drastically different they were. I was really taken aback by how much they literally were lying. Like they're literally
Actors.
lying. Yeah. Literally actors. And that was just like, whoa, because people are putting me and you in the same space of people who are on a screen, who are, you know, putting out content creators, right? And we're grouped into the same category. I just never can see myself as someone who's out there espousing things that I don't live in accordance with and like actually being okay with that.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. It can be hard not to become very frustrated with people like that. But something you have to remember, like I said about the dark hallway, some people think they're in the room and they're not, you know? Some people think that they've made it, that they think that they've seen the light, and maybe they have. And I think it's about the direction that you take it, right? Because the enemy, like if we're going to speak spiritually about it, the enemy, the devil, his main tactic is suggestion, right? So you may have been touched by divinity. All it takes is the devil to like whisper some nasty suggestion in your ear. And if you're not careful and you don't have discernment, you will take the wrong turn. You will follow the wrong fork in the road. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it seems as if we're never people who are taking away another person's agency, right? Everyone has free will to decide what they want. If they want to listen to that dark, evil voice, I mean, they can, right? The same way they can.
It doesn't always come as a dark, evil voice is the problem. Sometimes it sounds like a friend. That's
true. Like, I read this quote that said, the devil can't make hell seem appealing or look good, so he makes all the roads that lead there fun and beautiful.
Absolutely. It's all about like appealing to our carnal pleasures. That's really the connection there, right? Because that's really the only thing he has over us is that, like, you know, we have a body, right? He hates that about us. He hates you. And some people, you know, I've heard things of like people feel sympathy for the devil and things like that. And that's a very dangerous thought process to fall into, because the devil hates you and he's mean and nasty. He's been around so much longer than you. He is so much smarter than you. He will destroy you. But you know what? God will crush him under his heel if you follow God.
Yeah.
Right?
I think it's so interesting that that God and the devil are one letter removed of good and evil. Now, like, I think that there's like the aspect.
That's how language works.
I know.
It's crazy, just kind of, snowballs.
Yeah. And it's like, when people say like they want to do good in the world, I think that really is just like living in accordance with God, right? And like what
Well, goodbye is like it's like another nomenclature for like God be with you.
Oh,
right.
Wow.
So like, I'm just saying like language connects.
I didn't even realize that.
The Lord created the language and it connects in so many different ways, especially if you think about the English language, just an amalgamation of every language there ever was.
Yeah. That's it's really, really powerful. It seems like when you speak about this, you speak from like a depth of grappling with this stuff personally. And so you coming from like a background of being raised in Mormon church. I was raised Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah, I think we talked about that a little bit.
Yeah. And so like you had this, I'm sure you felt a connection to something. Greater,
I did.
But it didn't resonate as like being a part of that religion. And doesn't that like...
Yeah, I feel like the religion almost killed it for me.
Yeah. And so many people get out of touch with the aspect of a higher power, or God or a creator, because of the religious trauma that they experienced.
And it's not even just the religion itself. It's just like the circumstances of the religion, the founders of the religion, the behaviors of those that are in leadership in the religion. It's appalling.
Yeah, absolutely. It becomes like we see like bureaucratic stuff in the government, right? It becomes like the bureaucracy takes over, it becomes dogmatic, and people become robotic, and they lose that aspect of that connection to the divine spark. And so it's not to speak negatively about any of these religions, but it's more about people. You ever like been in school, or like when you're in school, you're like, what is this calculus? Like, why do I have to learn this? Right? Like, this doesn't mean anything. It's because it's so far removed from like, oh, you want to learn how to like engineer this like water system so that you can have water in your home if you're in a remote place. Like, here's how you learn about like flow rates, and this is how you use calculus in terms of like understanding diameters here and all this. Like, when it's applied to like something good, then you become like, oh, excited to learn about it, and you see like the beauty in it. But when you're just like removing it from the application, removing from the source of it and how it was created and like how it can be used for good and with a practical way in your life, people just like, oh, what is this?
I feel it's like the enemy also seeks to like destroy foundational premises, right? Because like everything was put here for a reason, for a certain purpose. And I think that the devil would destroy any of that he could through suggestion of people. Like it's man ruining a lot of this stuff. And I'm not like a crazy environmentalist or anything.
No.
But like I feel like it was put here with divinity and through suggestion, humans go to ruin it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
and that, like to everything, like to the foundations of certain religions, to the foundations of education. There's a foundation for a reason. And I feel like the devil likes to like make you love shortcuts. Love the quick way out and things like that, which only leads to destruction,
Exactly.
The wise man, the house on the sand, the house on the rock, that story.
It goes back to what you were saying, what we were saying at the beginning about how discipline is so important in this pursuit of good and in this creative process. It's like, you have to be structured and regimented, because if not, there can be a lot of suggestion, a lot of things that'll come in and have you questioning and breaking down foundational principles. And then you just get so lost.
Yeah. If you have no discipline, you are prone to distraction. And I think that's the biggest thing. It's so simple, discipline, but it's so complex to actually like master for yourself. And even some of the most successful people that you could think of are probably still trying to hone their discipline, because we're human. Like, discipline is hard.
It is. Cause you're having to make peace and understand some of your more carnal desires, and to understand emotions and how we get stuck in those negative cycles and states.
Absolutely.
And like you said, developing that discernment, right? I think
discernment
that's so huge.
I think discernment is the next big D. Discipline, discernment, but you cannot gain discernment without discipline. And discernment is also a gift given by the grace of God. Like it's not something you can get yourself. It's given.
Yeah.
And
I love that. How has like your faith in God, like how has that impacted your art and your music?
I would say it's the most pure form of like before I came to faith, I would write other things, and I look back at some of my older writings, and I'm like, this seems like it may be inspired by something else. If I look through my own notebooks, I can make that connection. Like other people would probably be like, oh, this is still so good. And that's fine. That it is. I mean, I believe that I'm a talented writer. So it's not like I feel bad about it really, but it's also like, you can see the disconnect. You can see where the shift is just in my writing.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Wow. That's impactful. I think self-reflection and also looking back at the evolution of the things that you create as your soul and who you are is evolving as well. Is really profound to one, see your growth, but also to see like, wow, I was misled in a lot of areas, and that can be really important, because then you could see how you could help people to maybe not make those mistakes, or maybe to understand what it's like when that voice calls you, that whisper of sweet comfort, that kind of.
That's why I'm so grateful for it, because like I said, that whisper of sweet comfort, it can sound like a friend, it can sound like love, but if it didn't sound like that, you wouldn't do it. You know what I mean? Like if it was like, do this now, like you'd be like, oh, what the hell? But like, it's like, if it's soft and comforting, and it gives you carnal pleasure and carnal comfort, you're probably going to do it, right? And I feel like that was my biggest thing, is that I was misled for so long by my own doing, but also that, like I said, the devil is strong and smart. God is stronger and smarter. Yeah.
And that's why it's less about relying on our own strength and power and being able to rely on God to assist.
I think surrender is very, very important. Huge. Like being able to surrender, and it's a daily battle. You can't do it every day.
It's true. And in every moment you have to try to remember.
It's a moment. It's a momentary basis, like literally like moment to moment, you have to surrender. You have to die to yourself every day. Every single day you have to wake up and die to yourself, because that's the reset button. Every day.
That's why I can't live places that are all rainy and stuff, you know. I need to see the sun.
I know all the days just kind of melt together.
I'm just like, when's the sun coming up?
You definitely, we pay for the weather here.
Hey, that's true. I mean, it's beautiful.
Grace from God that we get sun like this.
Absolutely. So I heard you say something where you said that you can't really make something of yourself until you're happy with yourself. Do you still kind of stand by that?
I would say kind of, right? Because I feel like happiness now I feel like happiness is subjective, but I also feel like happiness isn't all that matters. I used to think that like, oh, success to me is happiness. Like I just strive only for happiness. That's not what it's about. I don't think, being happy with yourself could be said also like, knowing your identity. If my identity is in God, then I will be happy no matter what's going on. Right? So that's what I mean by happy with yourself. Other people see happiness as, like we talked about before, the carnal pleasures, happiness in the sense of what looks happy. And that's just not, like I said, I don't believe that happiness is everything. I believe you need a fair amount of suffering, a fair amount of sorrow to be connected to anything higher.
100%. So it's like something along the lines of like, you have to really kind of get right within and connect to God and to have. To me, it's like, if you're not, this is why like when someone's mean to me or I see somebody be mean to somebody else, like it's easy to be mad at the person that's being mean, but let's just be honest, is that person's not right with God. And so all I can feel now is pity on them, and not in a bad way and not in a condescending way, but I mean, I've been there. Hurt people, you know? And if, I think it's not even about being right with yourself. It's about being right with God. And through that, you will become right with yourself. Yeah, I love that. And that's what you see, like you see people online in the comments, it's like saying like nasty, crazy stuff. And you're just like,
I'm just like, are you okay?
Yeah. Like,
are you good?
Like, you need God. Like what's going on?
No, honestly.
Like, is your day that bad? Like,
and it's like
so interesting to like actively espouse.
But also like you like, that's what I'm saying. Like, and you have the time for that.
Yeah.
That says something.
That's crazy. I don't even have the time.
I don't even have the time to read your stupid comment. Like,
okay. So speaking about the social media aspect too. Okay. One of the things that we talked about that was really profound in our conversations in the past, especially for me, this might just be a little bit of a personal thing. Like I said, I have little sisters, and I see that one of my little sisters said, I want to start a YouTube channel now, right? And I was like, that's so cool. And then my brain immediately went to, oh my gosh, the hate, the comments, the people saying, worried about self-image and appearance, lack of self-confidence, doubting. I'm just like, oh my goodness, having the desire where she's thinking like, oh, like I have to, be some type of way that is received well with likes and views. honestly, I was like, wow, I feel really not prepared to handle this. No YouTube channel yet, you know?
Right. Well, 7 is young for a YouTube channel. I'll say that.
But I mean, it's interesting because they see so many people online with the kid. You've seen like the little ones.
Oh yeah. My kids, that's what I mean. They see it cause there are parents that are allowing their kids to have a platform.
Well, see, in that, I think there's something that could be really interesting. And I think parents really need to be vigilant in what their children are watching. Cause even though it's just like a kid's show, like the kid's not editing the video. The kid's not, saying, hey, start, take here. They're not, producing it like that. So who is really managing this? Is it the parents? Do the parents have a good heart in this? And like, are they, utilizing the child as an opportunity to be famous and to garner views and likes, and so that's something that's really important. And so then, you think like, what are the parents suggesting? What are the producers? What are the people involved in this production?
Yeah. Really well, not even just with YouTube. Like you think about like child stars, Disney stars, exactly. But crazy things, right?
But nowadays every kid can kind of be like that because that's
what the thing is. It's like so oversaturated now that anybody could be it, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean everybody should be it. That doesn't mean everybody's protected. That doesn't mean everybody is in it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that's like honestly one of the biggest challenges is like the intentions of others. Because I could have the most pure intentions, but if you could understand how many times I've almost been taken advantage of because of my pure intentions or because of the warmth that I bring.
Yeah.
Which is like, it's just funny. Like, don't cross me.
No, I got that.
You know what I mean?
I'm like scared right now.
It's you got to be like wise as a serpent. What is it? Wise as a serpent, gentle as a dove.
Yeah.
You got to have both. That's what meekness is, right? Mm-hmm. Having a sword and knowing how to use it, but keeping it sheathed. I believe that's like one of the most important things. The most important aspects of humility is meekness.
That's powerful. It seems like you're speaking to something along the lines of balancing the feminine and masculine too within yourself. Where
absolutely, yeah.
That seems like you are able to step into and incorporate those masculine qualities while still being fully in your feminine as a woman, but you're there's also barriers, boundaries, structure, and order that I will maintain and uphold.
Yes.
That's something that's really powerful. So I just say like with parents and the YouTube stuff and the social media, it's important that they stay vigilant on that. So, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is like, how do you grapple with kind of staying true to your morals and values, while also trying to get engagement, views, likes, shares? You want to get listens and plays. How do you grapple with that?
I'll be honest with you. I don't actually grapple with it anymore.
Mic drop.
No. I mean, and I used to literally like my first like few posts, I remember like it got like, I don't know, like 3 or 4 likes or whatever. And a lot of my stuff doesn't have a lot of views and it doesn't bother me really because number one, it is old stuff. I don't even make stuff like that anymore. Number two, as I've grown further into my faith and like my understanding and identity in God and knowing that He has a plan for me, even if I can't see everything right now, when it comes to like getting likes, getting engagement and stuff, I think the best rule of thumb is to make something that you're satisfied with. Because a lot of marketing agencies will say like, you have to make stuff for the fans. And it is a service in that way. Mm-hmm. But I can't make anything for somebody else if it's not authentic to myself.
I resonate with that so much. They always tell you like, this isn't for you. This is for the audience, for them, like make it for them. And I heard people say that to me, like the business strategy. This is the grappling entrepreneurship and art, right? And they say like, it's not for you, make it for them, for the audience, for the shares, for the likes. And that just didn't resonate with me at all. I honestly felt so repulsed and disgusted by that.
That's where the art kind of falls away, you know, because there is an art to entrepreneurship. There's an art to marketing. There's an art in that. Mm-hmm. But if you're trying to make a certain type of art, it can get so clouded by marketing strategy and, social media. And I feel like I should grapple with it. I could get more views. I could get more engagement, but I choose not to grapple with it. I get a sufficient amount of engagement, and the engagement that I get is genuine. Yeah. And that's what's more important to me than the amount of it. And it's growing. So it just grows slowly, more slowly than you would expect.
Everybody go listen to her music. You need to. It's good.
Thank you.
No, it absolutely is. And it's organic. And I think you actually just really inspired in something in me where I'm like, No, good people should be put on. Good people should have a spotlight. Good people should have their voice out there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if I can do that, if I can remain steadfast in my faith and my mission and walk with a pure heart and be able to cast light for other people to shine and for them to get out, like, that's exactly what I want to do. And so if
I think it's like keeping your purpose at the forefront, right?
Yeah.
Because your purpose is not to get likes and engagement.
Mhm.
Your purpose is to spread your message, right?
Yep.
One genuine fan is worth more than 100,000 bot fans, fake fans, bandwagoners, right?
Yeah.
It's about genuine support.
Absolutely.
I feel like.
And then people forget and they see like 100 likes or they see 10 likes. It's like, do you understand what a room of 10 people or 100 people or 1,000 people? I mean, people are looking at something like, oh, only got 1,000 views. 1,000? You're in a room of 1,000.
There's 1,000 people looking at you.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I always said going into this is like, if I could help one person to kind of to see it through to another day, one person to stay in the fight, then it's all worth it. And I think at this point, I've had a lot of people reach out to me and I'm so grateful, saying like that I've helped them. And I'm like, wow, like this is all, it's all worth it now. It's all, this is just, I'm just blessed and grateful.
I think looking at it like doing the divine work, because it is your work here on earth that you're doing. Mm-hmm. But you have to remember who you're doing it for and who's letting you do it.
Yeah.
You know?
So last thing on this topic, there's, particularly thinking of you as, in the music industry, as a young woman of faith and as a mother, there's a big appeal for a lot of times. It seems like if people step into the industry, they're trying to get their voice and their message out there. There's a draw or a tendency for people to kind of be more seductive and kind of sexualize the content a little bit and how they're allured. How do you go about kind of thinking about those things? Because this is less about you, the creative process, and more just like, and then people are shooting a music video for you and they're like, oh, like do this pose, do this, or here's the content, here's the dress that we want you to wear, how do you kind of deal with that?
So I didn't have an Instagram till I was like 25 or 20, 26, 24, 25 probably. Yeah. So, and I remember the first advice that I got was like, the more skin you show, the more people will follow. And to me, immediately I was uncomfortable, right? Mm-hmm. Because like, I mean, I've been approached lots of times, people wanting me to like do something like make an OnlyFans or, so they can manage it and like also make money, right? Mm-hmm. There was a time in my life when those things were tempting just for like, obviously before I knew God, right? Yeah. So it's like, I've been on the side where you almost do something like that. And now looking back at it, I couldn't be more grateful that I didn't ever expose myself like that, because that's not who I am. Also too, once you put it out there, you cannot take it back.
Yeah, 100%.
Digital footprint is a real thing. And so especially more for my children, I'm so glad I never went through with any of that. And it's not something I considered very seriously ever. It was just kind of like I said, the suggestions from a friend, mm-hmm. those soft, gentle suggestions. That's how he works. Yeah. That's how the devil works.
Absolutely.
And I think, I couldn't be more grateful that I had the strength to forego those opportunities.
Yeah. That's super important to just maintain like being true to yourself and your morals, principles, and values.
It's a message that you send about yourself. I know a lot of women do it. They're maybe not a very promiscuous person, but they do it for the likes and for the views. Yeah. You could eventually turn into that person. Number one. Number two, perception is more important because mm-hmm. people are going to see you as that person, whether you are that on the inside or not.
No, I think, and you mentioned like your kids are going to watch this,
Oh, absolutely. So I couldn't, some people can deal with it, I guess. Yeah. I could never, for my children to see, if my children can't see it, it's not going anywhere else. Like, you know what I mean?
That's powerful. Yeah. I think that's really good. And it makes me take a more fine tooth comb to like the things that I produce and create as well. All right. So coming back to your music career, what are your kind of long-term goals and what do you hope to accomplish with your music, with your art, as we continue to move forward here?
I think the first step is kind of just finding success as an individual artist myself, but because I want to find that success in order to lead others to the same successes that they want, And I feel like a lot of people for myself, I know what I lack is somebody I can actually look up to.
Yeah.
And
No role
because there are lots of role models out there.
Yeah.
And I've gone through some mentorship with different people, and it's like after a while you kind of find out like, oh, your intentions don't align with mine, your beliefs don't align with mine. Sometimes you kind of have to be your own mentor, or really just surrender it, right? And I feel like a lot of people don't have somebody to lead them or guide them to do those things. And I feel like I would want to be that for somebody. I want to be for somebody the things I didn't have.
Yeah. So in this, you want to kind of be living your life in which you can be a mentor via your artistic, your music, just your voice, the words that you're speaking, the social media that you have.
Whether it's they want to do music, whether it's they want to do writing, whether it's they want to make, some people want to do tech. Some people want to like do that type of thing and they don't have like the right circumstances around them, the right funding. I'm big on funding. If I could go make some money to fund other people's dreams, 100%.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
That would. I don't love money like that. I'm fine. I'll be okay with no money, but I feel like so much of the help that I want to do costs money.
It does.
So I need to go make some, to go spend some on other people's dreams and messages.
Absolutely.
Other people have messages to send too, and they can't get there if they have no platform.
And I think the more that we are in a state of giving, the more we receive, the more we're blessed.
Yeah.
Because we become then a vessel through which we can help bless others, and God can utilize us.
And the important thing is to remember, like, not giving to receive, right?
Yeah.
It's definitely a benefit from it, but I feel like you really can't get anywhere until you're like in a state of service that's fully selfless.
Wow. I mean, that's amazing. I don't think there's any better place to end there, Valerie. That's awesome. Like, service above all else. That's what the goal here is.
Service above all else. So that's good.
I love that. So I guess I want to open up the floor to you. Thank you for such an amazing conversation here. I just want to open up the floor to you to share with the people out there your socials, where they can find you, where people can listen to your music, and anything else, any upcoming events or anything like that.
Okay, sure. So I have my Instagram artist page at Vali_Royal. I'm on all the music platforms, Apple Music, I think, everywhere. Pandora, Apple Music, Spotify. Have 5 releases out right now. I love to collab with the right people. And I got some new stuff coming out in the summer, and just really excited to get to work on it, Let's
go. I love that. So in here, Cause to Become podcast with Vali Royal. It was an absolutely amazing conversation, digging into faith, into the person behind the music that you see, and also just learning about navigating life and the career in the music industry as an artist, and as a mother. I learned a lot here. I'm fired up and inspired to kind of go out there.
So did I.
And to help others. And again, service above all else. So I'm your host here, Elijah Robert-Mahdi Soto. We're blessed and grateful always, and stay the course.